to Spotlight, 1 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on Political Lens. This is Voice of the People Television, VOP. We are broadcasting on Metro SLTV channel 264. On YouTube, we are Voice of the People Television, and on other social media handles, we are at VOP TV Live. I am Chukwu, and in the next 1 hour, I'm going to take us through this very spectacular show. And on the show today, Wike article absent as PDP holds 99th Nec meeting fails to revive party's decline. Well, we are joined this evening by a PDP chieftain, Chief Godwin Adai, who will help us make sense of the recent developments in the PDP and its journey at self-redemption. Good evening, Chief Godwin Adai, and thanks for coming to Political Lens. Hello, Chief Godwin Adai, can you hear me? You need to unmute your mic so that we can get your audio feed. Hello, Chief Adai, are you there? Chief Adai, you need to unmute your mic so that we can get your audio feed. Okay. I think it's a tech issue there, but we are going to sort it out in the course of the show. Let's kick into it right away. After more than a year of delays and multiple postponements, the National Executive Committee NEC meeting of the Opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, finally convened on Tuesday yesterday in Abuja. The meeting held at the party's presidential campaign office, Legacy House in Maitama, was recruited from the PDP National Secretariat in Wuse Zone 5, which was sealed on Monday by the Federal Capital Territory Administration, FCTA. The last NEC meeting was held on April 18, 2024. Since then, repeated efforts to reconvene the party's highest decision-making body had been frustrated by internal divisions and leadership wrangling. It reportedly took intense pressure from party leaders and PDP governors to ensure Tuesday's meeting held, following a controversial statement by the embattled National Secretary, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, announcing a postponement. Tuesday's meeting was attended by several PDP governors, party officials, members of the Board of Trustees, former governors, and National Assembly leaders. This included Governors Bala Mohammed of Bauchi, who is the chairman of PDP Governors Forum, Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State, Caleb Muftwang of Plateau, Madu Fintiri of Adamawa, Abu Kefas of Taraba, Peter Amba of Enugu, Ademola Adeleke of Oshun, Doye Diri of Bayelsa State, and Dauda Lawal of Zamfara. Also in attendance were Acting National Chairman Ambassador Umar Damago, Deputy National Chairman Taufik Rapaja, Acting National Secretary Setonji Koshodo, National Publicity Secretary Debo Ologowaba, BOT Chairman Adolphus Nwabara, BOT Secretary Senator Ahmed Markafi, and former governors Babangida Aliyu, Bukola Saraki, Olagunshoye Oyinlola, Samuel Otom, and Ibrahim Shekarau. Other key figures included Suleiman Kadade, Omar Bature, Josephine Aneni, Chief Ben Obi, Jerry Ghana, Bode George, Taminu Turaki, Senate Minority Leader Abba Moro, and leader of the PDP caucus in the House of Representatives, Kingsley Chinda. Notable absentees from the meeting included the party's 2023 presidential candidate, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who has been championing a new coalition of opposition parties to challenge President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2027. Also absent were the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, the embattled National Secretary, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, former Jigawa State Governor, Sule Lamido, and former Senate President, David Mark. Well, despite the long-awaited gathering, the NEC meeting ended without resolving some of the present challenges that have plagued the party for over a year. The PDP accused the ruling party of trying to turn the country to one-party state. Reacting to the outcome of the NEC meeting, the All Progressives Congress, APC, dismissed allegations of intimidation and one-party tendencies, insisting that the PDP is simply grappling with self-inflicted internal crisis. The APC's National Director of Publicity, Bala Ibrahim, said that the ruling party is focused on governance and not distracted by the affairs of the opposition. The PDP needs to revisit its conscience and check from within whether it was formed to strengthen or weaken democracy, Ibrahim said. Well, the APC is a progressive party that is busy giving out the dividends of democracy. We don't have time to intimidate or muscle opposition parties. It is not in our character. Now, that's the National Public Secretary of the PDP speaking. He added that the disarray within the PDP is a product of its internal contradictions, not external interference. The infighting among them is what is weakening them. That is what is intimidating them. It is an internal issue. It has nothing to do with APC. Oh, well, like I announced before, we are joined by Chief Godwin Adai, who is a PDP chieftain. Good evening, Chief Adai, and thanks for coming to Political Lens.
Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Very well, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, Nigerians.
Okay, we appreciate your presence on Political Lens. All right, I'm sure you followed the intro that I made. After more than a year of postponement, the National Executive Committee Nec meeting of your party held yesterday. Curiously, the main characters at the center of the storm in your party talk about Nyesom Wike, talk about Atiku Abubakar, talk about Samuel Anyanwu, were absent at the Nec meeting. Chief Godwin Adai, what is the state of your party in Nigeria? Can you help us understand all of that, sir?
Yeah, good evening, Nigerians. Thank you very much for inception of the meeting. There's been an inconsistency in respect to whether the Nec meeting is going to hold or not. Because if you remember, just 2 days ago, the members of the FCDA apparently shot the National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party. And because of that incident, a lot of people are of the opinion that whether the Nec meeting is going to hold or not, because that interception, that interruption, where the members of the FCDA went to shut down the PDP National Secretariat, was one major reason why a lot of people were skeptical whether the meeting is going to hold or not. But at the end of the day, because of course, the day before that very day of the Nec, the PDP caucus met and all the governors of the party were present, members of the board of trustees were present, NWC members and critical stakeholders across board. Apparently, you will see that there was a robust caucus meeting because, after the meeting before the Nec meeting. So that's, interruption made some people not to, deem it fit to attend that meeting because some of them were of the opinion that the meeting will not hold. But essentially, a lot of them are in Abuja already. A lot of them have come from their various, destinations. They've already in Abuja for the Nec meeting. But apparently, the leadership of the party were able to resolve their differences. And of course, the meeting held. Yes, Anyanwu is not present, not because he wouldn't have been there. If you recall, there are issues that borders on who becomes the national secretary of the party and all of that. That conversation was also in the front burner of the party. And the most important thing is that we have opened a conversation and we are very, very assured that in the nearest future, you're going to see a robust People's Democratic Party.
Okay, all right then. Thank you very much. Does that explain away? Is it because of the sealing of your national secretariat at Wadata Plaza? Is that the reason why Atiku, Abubakar, Nyesom Wike, and Samuel Anyanwu, the three people at the center of the storm in your party, were absent? Didn't they know that the meeting had convened? Or did they absent themselves out of disagreement with what the meeting that was held by the caucus ahead of the next meeting and all of that? That's what Nigerians want to understand. Is there any explanation you can give for their absence?
have reasons to do whatever they intend to do. But I do not want to believe that the reason why Anyanwu was not present, or the reason why Atiku was not present, or reason why the Wike was not present was all of these reasons. Yes, there are issues on ground. Yes, there are conflict of interest on ground. Yes, there are issues that borders on who becomes the national secretary of the PDP that is on ground. And don't forget, some of these leaders that you just mentioned, they are people who, of course, have contributed their own quota to the development of the People's Democratic Party. There's a lot of conversation ongoing. But like I said, a lot of people did not know that the NEC meeting is going to hold, because the PDP National Secretariat, which supposedly ought to have been the venue where we are going to convey, news had already gone viral that the meeting had already been, the party secretariat had already been shut down by the FCT administrators. So it is on that ground that a lot of people felt, okay, if the venue of the meeting has been sealed, then of course there is every tendency that the meeting will not hold. But of course, there are people or critical stakeholders, BOT members, NWC members, governors who are present already. Some of them back. That was because the notification that would give everybody the signal to come to the NEC meeting actually came late. So, but those who were there, they were present. And maybe, of course, maybe they didn't get the notification on time. That also may be one of the reasons why some of them were not in the meeting, not because there is any major issues or confrontation that warrants them not to be in the NEC meeting.
I like the fact that you talked about conversations that are ongoing. And we'll talk a bit about the sealing of your national secretariat. But before we get to that, two of the major issues challenging the cohesion of your party, the position of the national secretary, and the role of Nyesom Wike in the party were not mentioned, and they remain unresolved. Was there any single achievement recorded at the NEC meeting of yesterday? Was it just a jamboree? I ask this question in the light of the fact that the communique issued after the party, after the NEC meeting, had 10 clear points, and none of them touched on the internal crisis within the party. Rather, it dwelt on issues of governance, issues that the party publicity secretary, Debo Olubuaga, has several times said on air, in newspapers, on radio and television. Why was the NEC convened, actually, if not to resolve the internal crisis within the party? Like I said, the position of national secretary, which is at the storm, at the center of the storm in your party, was not mentioned. The role that Wike keeps playing in the party was not mentioned. Did the NEC just meet and issue out sound bites like, as usual, what Debo Olubuaga could ordinarily have said, at a press conference? Why was the NEC meeting called for in the first place?
Okay, let me answer you that question. The issue of the national secretary of the PDP was deliberated. If you are privileged to read the communique of the meeting, it talks about the state of the nation, it talks about the security with the policy document administration. It talks about the preparation for the National Convention of the People's Democratic Party. The meeting also talked about issues that bordered on zoning of the NWC. The fact that the Southeast, which of course is where, or the region where the issue of the national secretary is becoming an issue, if they actually mention of the fact that the executive or the zonal executive of that party submitted. Hold on. The zonal executive.
I'm sorry, Chief Adai. I had to button at this moment. I have the communique. We are going to go through all of that. My question is that the communique that you talked about, or you are talking about, did not in any way mention that the party tries to resolve its internal crisis. That's my point. That's my question. So why was the NEC meeting convened? How will you take on the ruling party in 2027 if you cannot resolve their internal crisis? You say conversations are ongoing. For how long are you going to hold conversations? That is what Nigerians want to know.
You see, these issues are very sensitive issues.
Okay.
Don't forget that the issue that borders on the National Secretariat has already been resolved by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has made it explicitly clear that it is within the internal jurisdiction of the People's Democratic Party to resolve the internal affecting the party. So on that note, there are, tensions here and there because of the people who, of course, took their various position in respect to the Odokoye and their Anyanwu side. The NEC have listened to all the dissenting voices. They have listened to all their already set up within the party to look into the crisis so that a recommendation can be given. Don't forget that ever since this issue started, this was one of the first NEC meetings that is being held. So it is within the power of NEC to listen to the various agitations, to listen to all the complaints. Southeast, they have submitted a comprehensive report in respect to that matter. We study the report. The leadership of the Southeast are brought, and then before they cannot take a decision. So that issue was actually deliberated, but of course it is too early for them to take a decision on it. So a committee had already been set up to look into it, and then by the time they have finished whatever they want to do in the committee level, then the NEC will not take a profound decision in the subsequent engagement. So the idea that the NEC didn't talk about it is not true, because the NEC talked about very critical issues. And of course, you know that as a party, it is not everything that we do that will be in the media.
Okay.
There are certain things that are within the internal workings of the party. Until we're able to resolve our issue internally,
okay,
then the media will now get to hear. But as I speak to you now, the party is working. The leadership are actually doing everything they can. They are looking at the submission of the leadership of the party from the Southeast. And I can assure you that at the appropriate time, which of course, maybe next month thereabout, they will take a decision in respect to the secretaryship issues.
Okay, we'll talk about the Southeast and the PDP in a bit. Mr. Adai, I hate to put you on the spot, but permit me to do that now. Are you in a position to help us resolve the confusion about the... Now, let me ask you, if you were to obtain a document from your party now, the PDP, and it requires that the national secretary of your party will sign it, who will you go to?
Well, you see, these are internal party issues. Like I said, because there are internal issues, of course, in the eyes of the law, Sam Anyanwu is the National Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. But of course, if you also look at the declaration from the Supreme Court, it also stated it clearly that it is within the internal jurisdiction of the People's Democratic Party to take a decision. And if you remember, recently, the Zonal Working Committee of the Southeast met, and a decision has been taken in respect to that skirmishes that is ongoing in respect to the issue of secretaryship. So like I said, a submission had already been made. The leadership of the party will look into it critically.
Okay.
And then at the appropriate time, they will take a decision. For me, I do not believe that the issue of the secretaryship will be an issue. Because if you love the party, if you genuinely love the People's Democratic Party, there is no sacrifice that is too much for you to do to see that the party remains strong, the party remains vibrant, and the party remains so strong to the extent that we can be able to win election. So my appeal is, whatever the submission, the issue of grandstanding should not be the major issue.
Okay.
Because as far as I'm concerned, the leadership of the party will look into it and they will take an appropriate decision to see to it that there is no ox's gore in that regard.
All right. Thank you, Chief Adai. I like the point where you have brought us to now. You said that in the eye of the law, Sam Anyanwu is or should be the national secretary of the party. And in another break, you said that the Supreme Court also clearly said, look, this should be an internal affair of the party. Now, talking about the internal affair of the party, the position of national secretary was zoned to the southeast. And the Southeast Caucus has met and said Sunday Udo Okoye is the national secretary. Since that position was zoned to the southeast, we have nominated Sam Udo Okoye. But there are preferences. There are people that may have preferences for Sam Anyanwu, and it's been propped up by forces outside the southeast. Doesn't that look like a deliberate attempt to undermine the party and send it further down the line of chaos?
Well, you see, like I said, this issue is a very sensitive issue because party matters should be resolved within the confine of the party. And like I said, the southeast, where there is a region that the office of the national secretary was officially zoned to. And then some of them are of the opinion that yes, Sam Anyanwu has resigned his position and went to contest for governor. And because of that, he cannot come back and say he is the national secretary of the party. But again, we need to look at the document of the People's Democratic Party. Does it give room for somebody to contest election and still come back to reclaim his position? The fact is that we have seen such antecedent before. Yes, the Southeast Caucus felt, okay, having gone to contest election, it is not appropriate for you to come back and you want to assume that position. That is when the leadership of the Southeast now came together and said, no, we are nominating one of our own, which is the person of Sunday Udo Okoye, to be the substantive national chairman on the ground that Anyanwu has left to contest election. That matter was taken to court. The Supreme Court, from the High Court to the Appeal Court to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has looked into the validity of the issue and said, look, we lack locals to deal on this subject matter. And therefore, we let status quo remain. It is on that ground that Anyanwu stands as a substantive national secretary of the party. But again, if you look at the judgment, there is also a lacuna in that judgment on the ground that it also stated that the internal workings of the party should be an internal resolve of the party. So it is on that ground that the Udo Okoye camp also felt that, okay, this issue is also within our ambit to treat. And of course, they have been doing that. They've held meetings and they've said it categorically that their national secretary is no longer Sam Anyanwu, that the national secretary is Udo Okoye, because Anyanwu has gone to contest election. And it was on that ground, because before you contest election, you have to resign. So there is also a conflict of interest in that area.
Chief Adai, what does your party constitution say about resigning to contest elections and coming back? Because I understand there's a provision in your constitution, your party constitution, that clearly allows that. Is that correct?
Yes, because the truth of the matter is that the constitution of the People's Democratic Party used the word may, or the guideline rather. The guideline said may. When it says may, it actually gave room for somebody to go and return. But there is also a guideline of the party before provisions that the Otokoye camp anchored on. In the real sense of it, looking at the document that was submitted is also valid. And that is why it is now apparent and very fundamental that the leadership of the party will look into the validity of this matter to see to it that it is resolved amicably. Because the way they are going about it now, if, for instance, it's not properly addressed, there is every tendency that whatever we are going to do going forward, we also end up in court.
Okay,
and that is not what we want as a member of the People's Democratic Party.
I like the fact that you have accepted the fact that this problem could also cause more problems in future, and it's already caused problems for your party. Because Akwa Ibom State Governor Umo said, look, don't have any problem with the PDP, but I am scared. We have done everything that we need to do. If we contest elections today in the platform of the PDP, we are going to win. But I don't want a situation where somebody says, look, the person that signed your nomination form, the person that signed one document for you, isn't the authentic person that should have signed it. So why is it difficult for your party to resolve all of this? You have lost 2 members, 2 governors in one breath. Within 2 months, you have lost 2 governors. And like they say, 2 down, more to go. So why was it difficult? Okay, I like the fact that you said that conversations are ongoing. So we'll take it at the moment that the PDP doesn't have a national secretary. Is that correct? Should we go away with that?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
Let me give you an analogy. In my own personal opinion, this is what will be my counsel in respect to the leadership position. If you remember, or let me recall you or take you back to a story in the Bible. Once upon a time, there are 2 women that gave birth to a baby. The other woman gave birth to a baby, and the other woman gave birth to a baby. Eventually, one lost her baby. And then the one that lost her baby want to claim another person's baby. They went to the court. They went to appear before the king. And the king now was unable to decipher who originally is the owner of the baby. And the king now said, no, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to use my sword to tear this baby into 2. Since all of you are grandstanding, nobody wants to accept that this one says it's my baby, this one says it's my baby. The point I'm trying to make you understand in essence is that if they continue to drag like that, the king will have no choice but to kill the baby. But because of the love of the other woman, she still told the king, now no, instead of you to kill the baby,
okay,
take the baby and give it to the other woman. Let that woman have the baby so that the baby will not die.
Okay, which is the analogy now, yes.
Now, the point I'm trying to make in essence is that both Anyanwu and Udokwe, one of them, for the fact that both of them claim they love the party, one must decide to make sure that he sacrifice his personal ambition so that the party will live.
Okay.
If not, if they continue with this dragging will have the tendency of ensuring that it will end up with the annihilation of the party. So since both of them have professed that they love the party, one who loves the party more than the other should take this bold decision and say, wait, I know that this position is my position. I know that I am the rightful owner of this position. But because I don't want the PDP to die, I want to decide that irrespective of everything, I will allow this position to go so that the baby will live. In this case, the PDP will live. That will be my counsel. And I believe that the leadership of the party will see to it that they pacify both of them, because without sacrifice, we will not end up well as a party. And I believe that both Samanang and Udokoye, they love the party, you know, at the same proportion. Therefore, I expect one of them to make that sacrifice for the interest of the party.
All right, thank you very much. I think you have sent a very clear message, not just to the PDP, but to the Southeast. Because a lot of people have also said, if they continue to drag or struggle for that position, the PDP might just take away that position from the Southeast. Now, let's move away from the position of secretaryship and internal crisis and dwell on another issue that also borders on the internal crisis within the PDP. The FCT Minister Nyesom Wike accused Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State and Peter Mbah of Enugu State as the ones causing the problems in the PDP at the moment. Now, talking about how they reneged on settlements and agreements. Do you agree with Wike, especially when he absolved himself from any blame in the PDP crisis, putting all of them on Peter Mbah and Seyi Makinde? What's your reaction on that?
You see, it is very sad that the likes of Wike and the likes of, I don't want to exonerate anybody, the likes of Seyi Makinde, and apparently all the leaders of the party who have benefited so much in this political party called the PDP. They've been everything they ought to have become. The PDP has done so much for them. You see, it is sad. You know, the FCT minister, with all due respect to him, always talk about agreement. The point we want to ask is that the agreement that they had, is it an agreement that has been ratified by the National Executive Committee of the party, or an agreement that has been ratified by the National Convention of the party, or an agreement that is ratified by the National Working Committee of the party? Up till now, I want to put it to you, you people who are journalists, why don't you take a step further to ask the FCT minister what is actually the agreement that he's emphasizing on? Because first of all, we need to know the agreement. We want to know the parties who are in agreement, and we want to know the content of the agreement. Until we know the people who are in agreement, until we know the content of the agreement, you cannot bind an agreement that two friends had on a political party. The PDP is too big for a few persons to sit in the confine of their own comfort zone to say, okay, we have had an agreement, and because of that, you want to bind the agreement to over billions of members of the PDP, People's Democratic Party. I think it's unacceptable. It's appalling, it's sad that few friends will take themselves to a parlor and agree on whatever they want to agree. And they are telling us that the agreement is binding on us who are members of the People's Democratic Party. So my own question is that I want to ask you, the journalists. The journalists need to go further to ask the FCT minister.
We have asked. It's in the public place. It's in the public space. It's in the public space. Let me give you one of the conditions. One of the conditions Wike said they agreed, one of the agreements is, according to Wike, is that, look, they should allow Sam Anyanwu to serve out his term as secretary of the party. The other one is that, look, the PDP Governors Forum took the federal government to court for declaring a state of emergency in Rivers State. One of the conditions of that agreement was that, look, the PDP governors must have to withdraw that suit. Those are the two letters of the agreement and more. So aren't you aware of that?
Well, you see, those agreements, as far as we are concerned, it is not a resolution of the neck of PDP. And because it is not a resolution of the neck of the PDP, it cannot be an agreement that is binding on us, the members of the People's Democratic Party.
Exactly point. You have taken us back to where we started from. The next meeting that held yesterday, Wike, who is at the center of the crisis, Atiku Abubakar, who is in the eye of the storm, and Sam Anyanwu, 3 of them were absent. So how far can the next meeting go in resolving the crisis within the PDP? That is the question Nigerians are asking.
Well, you see, the NEC is a very big body.
Okay.
The NEC constitutes a lot of senior, high-profile leaders of the People's Democratic Party. And the beauty of it is that whatever the decision that the NEC will take will be binding on both the PDP Governors Forum. Let us even assume that the agreement was within the PDP Governors Forum. Because as far as the People's Democratic Party is concerned, we have elected our leaders through a national convention. And the only way you can take away a leader, the punishment, or let me say, every infractions that will make a national working committee leave has been stated within the party. And in my own opinion and with my experience in the PDP, I do not believe, or I do not see, that there is any infraction that has already been taken or embarked upon by the Anyanwu. So my point is that instead of trying to compound this issue, causing confusion, how long will it even take for the tenure of this NWC to elapse? What damages will even the Anyanwu as a person will do to the People's Democratic Party? For me, if you ask me, between now and August, it's not really a big a time with all due respect. I would have advised that in order to avoid unnecessary litigation, in order to avoid unnecessary, bickering and skirmishes, they would have been able to allow Sam Anyanwu to serve his tenure. Irrespective, because I know that, yes, most of the members of the People's Democratic Party are not comfortable with the relationship between Anyanwu and the FCT minister. Because, of course, if you are a genuine member of the People's Democratic, you have every reason to worry. You have every reason to worry on the ground that the Nyesom Wike himself has publicly made a declaration that he is working for Tinubu. So anybody who is in a member of the opposition, you have to be skeptical. A man who has made a declaration that is going to work for the ruling party over and above the party he professed, we have to be careful. Because in a strategic room, information is very vital for us. And I also understand why some of them who are leaders of the party are not comfortable with the fact that Anyanwu is still hobnobbing with the FCT minister. But of course, nobody can stop him from, can stop Anyanwu from his own private life.
I get your point. Again, I get your point, Chief Adai. We need to run because we are out of time and we have more grounds to cover. My takeaway and the takeaway of many people is that, look, Wike shouldn't clearly absolve himself of the problems rocking the PDP. Now, let's move away from all of that. Secretaryship, Sam Anyanwu, and all of Sheyi Makinde, Pitamba. Let's look at the embarrassing situation where your party head office was sealed because you didn't pay 7 million naira ground rent for 28 years. Is there any justification for that? After your party was in office for 16 years, your party produced El Rufai as FCT minister, Adamo Alero, who again, are like 4 of them within that period. Yet, you couldn't pay ground rents of just 7 million naira. And people like Bode George, a chieftain of your party, are trying to blame the FCT minister for the mistake of the party, or as some have called it, the impunity of the PDP. Chief Adai, what is your reaction to that embarrassing situation?
Well, in my own personal opinion, with all due respect, the administrative body of the People's Democratic Party, we have made a mistake indeed. We have made a mistake on the ground that ordinarily these are, issues that the office of the National Secretary or the administrative body of the PDP would have looked into it. But you know, in a political arena, the tenure of every NWC is 4 years. So you might not, maybe out of oversight or something of that nature. I don't want to believe it's a deliberate thing. But like I want to say, if indeed that we erred, and of course the party is unable to pay her ground rent, the FCT minister still remains a member of the People's Democratic Party.
You are toying, but you are making the same argument that Chivola Bode George made. That
exactly.
Wike should have paid the money.
He's still a member of the People's Democratic Party. He has the financial war chest. How much is 7 million or 12 million or that amount of money that is too big for him to take that responsibility? Just like Chief Bode George has earlier said. And I want to throw that line of thought. The FCT minister would have deemed it fit as somebody who loved the party, as somebody who has been everything within the party, to say, oh, let me even take up this responsibility, and because of the love of the party. Because what he has ended up doing is embarrassing even the party that he prided himself to be a member of.
Chief Ada, is it the party that embarrassed itself? How much did you raise in 2022 through nomination forms, for expression of interest forms and all of that? How much did the party raise? And okay, so listen. Why blame it on Wike? If Wike had left the PDP and still...
Nobody is blaming. Okay. Nobody is blaming Wike. You know, for me, I still feel like it's a lack of irresponsibility on some persons. We must call a spade a spade.
Okay.
It is a lack of irresponsibility on some members of the National Working Committee who have not deemed it fit to look into their documents to know what is the liability and the asset of the party. And of course, you cannot really blame the FCT minister. But again, for the sake of, you know, brotherhood, for the sake of the love of the party, for the sake of the interest of the party, I think it is apparent. Because ordinarily, it shouldn't have gone to the level where a whole political party that have over 20 million Nigerians who are members to be embarrassed on something that is far below our capacity to resolve.
Okay.
So for me, it's an embarrassment.
Okay. All right.
But I also know that subsequently the leadership of the party will look into it.
All right. But thank you, Chief Adai.
It is not out of place for the leadership for the FCT minister to look at it and say, no, let me just upset this bill.
Okay, I got all of that. I got all of that. We need to run.
Exactly.
We need to run because we are out of time. Now, your party, represented by the PDP Governors Forum, has rejected any coalition ahead of 2027. But the national leader of your party, in the person of Atiku Abubakar, by virtue of his being the presidential candidate of the party in the just concluded 2023 general election, is deeply involved in coalition talks. Do you think the governors are right in rejecting the coalition? Can your party go the whole haul without an article in the party?
I think, you know, in the political arena, what is more important is frequent engagement. I believe in frequent engagement. I believe in frequent conversation. I believe in frequent dialogue. You see, the position of His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is very valid. It's the way the PDP is today. There is a need for us to, you know, bring in other opposition voice to join forces. The ruling party today, they control the executive arm of government. They control the legislative arm of government. They control the security arms of government. They have governors, over 22 governors, head of ministries and parastatals are all members of, you know, the APC. So in order for us to form a formidable force, I think it is apparent for them to look at, you know, the submission of the vice president to say, look, we need to bring other people to join us. So it is not out of place for the People's Democratic Party to open her space to allow other opposition parties so that we can be able to form a formidable force. It is not an easy thing. It's not a tea party for you to oust out a ruling party.
Okay.
And the politics is a game of numbers.
Okay.
So we need all the manpower. We need all the resources. We need to lobby other people so that we can be able to form a formidable force.
All right. One more question before we leave, because we are out of time. One of the major characters in your party, that's Nyesom Wike, has asked the party not to field another candidate in the 2027 general election. What intentions does he have? Is it to help save or destroy the PDP? And I would like for you to put together your concluding thoughts as you answer this last question, sir.
Well, I didn't hear what you said correctly, okay, but I wholly heard.
What I said, or the question I asked is that Wike, who is a major stakeholder in your party, has asked the party not to repeat.
If you are with the PDP, you are with the PDP. If you are with the APC, you are with the APC. So I find it very funny, very counterproductive for him to profess that, yes, I want to support Asiwaju in the afternoon. I want to support Asiwaju to become the president in 2027. And now you are professing to be a bona fide member of the People's Democratic Party. The point is that, do you want to now support a president in the PDP and support a president in the APC at the same time? The answer is no. So in my simple opinion, and in conclusion, I would like to say that his actions, whether you like it or not, is tilting towards destroying the party, not to build the party. And the earlier the leadership of the party understand this very key objective, the better we'll be able to rally ourselves around to see to it that we strengthen our party and push it to the next level.
All right, then. Thank you very much. This is where we wrap up this conversation. It's been quite interesting. And Chief Godwin Adai, big thanks to you. And I hope you come back to Political Lens so that we can talk more about what is going on in the PDP and also discuss other topical national issues. We appreciate your presence on Political Lens. Thanks for coming, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, all right then. On behalf of the backroom staff, I am Chukwuma Okoro. Up next is Issues with Jerry Apollo High. Stay with us and don't go away.